Hey, so we're here today with Josh Nealis from Cutthroat Comics, a local comic book and novel distributor and creator out of Findlay, Ohio. Josh, how you doing, man?
Oh, not too shabby, I suppose.
Good, good. We brought you on today to kind of talk a little bit about local comics and your books and independent comics in general and novels and doing things independently. The first question I have for you is first question I have for everybody who's in comics. How did you originally get into comics? Were you a fan of them when you were younger, or is that something you just kind of jumped into later on in life?
Kind of both, sort of. So obviously, as a kid, I used to spend a couple weeks in the summers down at my dad's in Kentucky, and I would stay with my aunt some nights with my cousin, and we'd go into this gas station, and we'd have $10 that our grandma gave us or whatever, and we'd buy pop and candy, and there'd always be comics sitting on the rack, and me and my cousin started picking them up, and reading them and stuff, and then of course, about the early to mid '90s hit, and you had Spider-Man and X-Men on Saturday morning cartoons and all that.
Yeah.
Started getting into it from there, and I collected comics pretty seriously as a kid, a little bit, more just picking them up off the stands, but. And then what was it? It was a few years. Well, it was like 4 years ago. I was at my normal job. My band had broken up. I was doing these movie reviews for this webpage that I used to have, and I was not satisfied with that. It wasn't creative enough. And one day I had an idea, like just this real stupid idea for a comic book, and here we are. That's pretty much.
Well, that's excellent. So I think just about every comic book fan, anyone who's read comics as a kid, has at one point or another gone, you know what, I can do this. So what was the process of like actually jumping into it, like making that jump from going, this is something I would really like to do, to now where you have multiple comics that you take around to you sell online, and you I assume you take them to like Free Comic Book Day that's coming up, and like. Yep. Print copies and stuff like that. What's the process? Because I'm incredibly curious about that.
Well, okay. So I mean, there's 1,000 ways I can answer this.
Sure.
So with anything in life, especially when you're doing creative stuff, I think the rule of thumb is 1,000 hours, right? Okay, I've heard comedians say 1,000 hours on stage before you get good at it. Bands, 1,000 hours playing and practicing before you get good at it. And it varies from person to person. So I've probably I'm not even at 1,000 hours writing, but I think I've gotten pretty good at it. Mm-hmm. As my comics have come along, the writing has gotten better as far as story and character development. Mm-hmm. And that includes the real books that I've written as well. And then as far as the writing process of a comic goes, like I'm writing Stingray 2 right now. And actually, while I was waiting for you guys to call, I was sitting here storyboarding. So I can't draw at all. Like I draw a stick figure and you think it's a hippo. Like it's awful. But so I do the storyboarding, and then I write a little script, and then I found a guy, he's from Italy, and he draws and colors my books. So I send that to him. He always sends me back an LOL, stop drawing. And then he puts it together. I approve the drawings. Then he goes to color. And that's where it gets a little tricky, because once he colors it, if it's wrong, it's done, and he has to start over.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to be real focused on what you're doing. So That's how the comics get made. I mean, once it's done, I send it off to this printer. They print it, send it to me, and there it is. And you're looking at 5 months probably per comic.
Really? Okay. That's really not that bad of a turnaround, honestly. I mean, for doing it pretty much just you and one other guy, basically.
Yep.
I mean, that's really great. Now, how did you get hooked up with your artist?
Cristiano Reyna.
That's it. Yes.
I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never even spoken to him like we're speaking.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's all through Facebook Messenger and email.
Huh.
But so I started the Cutthroat Comics Facebook page, and before Facebook changed some things, you were able to like other pages through your page and share and all that kind of stuff. And I was doing this thing where I was sharing other pages. They were sharing mine, trying to gain followers and all that. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to come across him. And I had a guy that was here in Findlay that was going to do it for me, and that just didn't work out.
Mhm.
And I had seen some of Cristiano's work, and I was like, man, this guy's pretty good. I was like, I wonder what his rates are. And then we started talking, and I was like, damn, this dude's from Italy. I didn't even know that. But and he speaks all right English. Sometimes it's a little tough, but his rates were pretty good. I had him do 2 character designs, which were Stingray and Snapdragon from Stingray issue 1.
Okay.
And that worked really well. I mean, it didn't take us long to throw that together. And then he did the full book, and now he's done all 3 of them. And we have, I think, at least 3 to 4 more planned with him.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Now,
Cool.
how much of the design process of the characters in the books does he have? Now, do you have like, you mentioned that, you draw a stick figure and, that's basically, like, do you have like an outline of how you would like the character designed, or do you give him more kind of carte blanche on what the designs of, say, the Ginger Avenger or Stingray or what have you?
It's kind of a mixture. So sometimes I'll have a really focused dial in, what I want. And I'll try to give him, I'll pull up Google and put like, this type of sword or this color hair or this type of beard, and I'll throw that on the script so it's right there in front of him.
Okay.
Actually, the Ginger Avenger, it's really funny. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my band Until Forever, we're broken up. If you go and look at the Facebook page and find the singer.
So it took me a bit, but I found the Until Forever Facebook page here, and yeah, I think the lead singer kind of looks a little familiar.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Wow. All right. Okay, well, that's cool. That's really cool that you're able to kind of use that as kind of an visual inspiration for the character.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't necessarily want him to look just like that. And actually, I told him when I first got the very first colored picture of Ginger Avenger, I sent him a text with the picture. And I said, "This wasn't supposed to look like you, but here we are."
Oh, that's awesome. We've mentioned a couple of your books, Stingray and Ginger Avenger, and right now they both have, along with your other comics up there, they have issue 1s now. And you mentioned that you're going to be working on others. Now, are these all part of like, these are, shared universes are really popular these days with like, the Marvel movies and like, everything that they're trying to do, try to interconnect every single little thing in subtle ways. Do you think now that you have a couple of, series kind of under your belt, that there is kind of interconnected kind of crossover universe sort of situation, or is it kind of all independent kind of stories?
Well, how do you know I haven't had that planned all along? Actually, I take it even further than that, actually. Now, if you read every single thing that I've written and then read it again, you're going to find Easter eggs upon Easter eggs upon Easter eggs. Pretty much everything I've written is based in the same city.
Okay.
That's true.
Which is Brothel City.
Yeah.
And then the characters, they talk about like there's this park, everybody goes to this park, or there's this diner or this bank or whatever. Everybody kind of walks around and runs into the same places. So I don't sit there and say like, oh, they all live in Brothel City. But if you read it, like there's one, there's a very rude story I have in my short stories book. And it's about it's kind of like an animal farm style. This hunter goes to Africa to hunt, and then the animals turn on him basically. So the animals could talk in this one, and the lion, who's an African lion, has an Australian accent. And in my newest book, there's actually a line about a lion having an Australian accent. So there's a lot of stuff like that.
Okay, interesting.
In all my books.
Yeah, very interesting. That's actually kind of leads me into the other thing I wanted to ask you about. Beyond the comics through Cutthroat, you also write full-blown novels. How is the process different between writing novels and short stories as opposed to scripting comics and storyboarding that out for your artist?
I mean, it's amazingly different. I mean, so for instance, my first book, I wrote it, I think, in 10 months. Okay. I just finished the sequel to that. I mean, that book sold really well. I was actually really surprised with how well that sold. And pretty much everybody was like, you can't leave it like that. You have to do another. So I did. And I kind of agreed with him. I was like, I can do more and add on to it. So the second book, I mean, it took me over a year. I mean, it was so hard just to come up. I mean, you think about the book reports you had to do in school where you had to talk for 3 pages about The Hobbit or whatever. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of content in The Hobbit. probably 300 pages or whatever or more, you can shrink that down to 3 pretty easy with a synopsis. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to take the synopsis and turn it into 300 pages or 250 pages. I mean, it's luckily my real job. I drive around. So all I do is I think about jokes. I type them in my phone. I come home and I make that joke fit in the story. So I tell all my friends that are friends with me on Facebook, my books are basically just a super extended version of one of my Facebook posts.
Okay. Okay, cool. That's a really good way to write it. I mean, having a lot of downtime to kind of, formulate ideas and stuff. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting.
Oh yeah. I mean, it takes a lot, man. I mean,
I'm sure.
And I can tell you right now, I'm watching NFL Network. It's on mute right now, but you think about a football player at the end of their season. Think about how tired they are mentally, physically, and all that. Mm-hmm. After I'm done writing a book, I need like 2 weeks, just to like chill. I mean, it's mentally draining.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so we've talked about the process of getting the comics made, writing the comics, writing novels, and stuff like that. Because it's Free Comic Book Day and everything, I want to talk a little bit about how you go about distributing your comics. How do you get your stuff out there? Because there are a lot of independent creators, a lot of independent people, not just in comics, but just different creative medias in general, who have many, many different ways of trying to get their stuff out there. What have you found that works best for you?
Well, I mean, you got to do what you're comfortable with. Okay, so a lot of people use Kickstarter and stuff like that, GoFundMe's and whatnot, mm-hmm. and that's fine. To each their own. I'm not comfortable with that, if that makes sense. And I may do a Kickstarter at some point because you can offer incentives, so it's a little different than like a GoFundMe. Mm-hmm. But my personality is I've worked for everything I have. Okay, so I'll put in the work before I'll accept money from somebody with a promise to give them something back later, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
That being said, anymore, I think I've got like 5 total comic shops right now that are carrying my comics and or books. 6 if you count books, because I have a bookstore here in Findlay that carries just the books.
Oh, okay, great.
But it's tricky because it's such a small business, and you don't want to overextend yourself. You have to grow at a nice rate. So, right now I have 5. After I do a few more appearances, I might approach more comic shops and grow. You have to grow slowly because, and a lot of these places they don't just buy my books outright. At this point, I'm still small. I don't have people walking into comic shops going, "You got the new Stingray 1?" I've never heard of it, but I'm just guessing there's one here. But so they do consignment. So they take a cut of the sale.
Right.
So that leaves me in the hole. I'm sitting on that money that's not even here. It's in Toledo or Columbus. So that's tough too. I mean, it's for me, the hardest part of this is branding my company, mm-hmm. as well as promoting myself.
Right.
That's been the trickiest part. When do I do which and how?
Exactly. And I know here on our show we've run into some issues with that as well, trying to find where the fine line is between promoting ourselves and overexposure and that sort of thing. So I definitely can feel how that trying to go slowly and methodically and trying to get yourself out there,
or just branding is
tough.
Branding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, luckily I have a pretty awesome logo.
It's a really great logo.
It is a good one. Yeah, for sure.
Hey, I made that.
Oh, you did?
So that was me.
Excellent. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the Ginger Avenger. That is your most recent comic that has been released. For the listeners at home who hear that and go, okay, obviously he's a redheaded guy, but did he say Avengers or something? What's the elevator pitch for that comic?
It's kind of a tough one. So I usually start with, and I've only had this at one con so far. Mm-hmm. So as I go to more cons and stuff with it, I'll lock it down exactly what I want to say. Mm-hmm. Ginger Avenger is the first family-friendly comic released by Cutthroat Comics. And I'm actually really proud of that because you guys have read some of my stuff. You know how hard it must have been for me to hold back on the cursing.
A little, yeah.
So, and I have a children's book out as well, which was also extremely difficult for me to write. But I did it. But Ginger Avenger basically is this archaeologist, and he stumbles across this like kind of enchanted cave in Ireland, and he is startled and falls into the water, where the cave itself, kind of like how Thor's hammer is like only worthy to him. So this cave will pick the next Ginger Avenger.
Okay.
Basically, so and he's chosen, he's transformed into the Ginger Avenger. Then he has this small child, who's the person that startled him into the water, that you find out has basically been around since the time of Jesus, and he's seen and done some pretty incredible things throughout the book. I do like some flashbacks on him, so you can get context, and those stories will develop later as well. So, but then, I mean, it's an origin issue, and it's hard to. That's the tricky part, is I'm doing origin issues, and now when I get into 2 and 3 and 4 of the issues, then everything can develop, and you can see the big picture, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know writing origins, that has to be really tough. Do you have a like a finite story set for Ginger Avenger or Stingray or your other comics, or is it like as long as you can keep coming up with ideas for them, you'll keep producing them?
Well, I was going to do this thing where I had this like alien with this awesome glove come around, and he's like trying to kill everybody. But I heard that that's been done.
Yeah.
So well. I had to like scribble out my dry erase. I was like, damn it. But no, I've got a rough idea of what I want to happen.
Okay.
And like I said, all these people live in the same world, and once you read all 3 books, all 3 comics, you're going to start seeing Easter eggs.
Okay.
So everything's going to come together. Let's just say the one squirrel that gets kicked into outer space has a big part in things.
Right. Well, I'm really looking forward to checking that out and seeing where everything goes. Josh, thank you again for coming on the show. Before I let you go, do you have anything you'd like to plug at like appearances, anything like that that's coming up?
No, I don't.
No.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff lined up for this year, and I can't see my whiteboard from where I'm sitting. I do know that Free Comic Book Day is this Saturday, so whether you guys decide to run this now or later, I will have been at Cameron's Comics and Stuff in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
I'll be there 10 to 1, signing books, selling books, shaking babies. And then also, you guys may have heard that Wizard World is coming around June 8th, 9th, and 10th in Columbus.
That's right, yeah.
I'll be at that. And, this is a pretty good thing. If you're planning on going, I have a discount code for you. So go to facebook.com/Cutthroat Comics. Scroll down our feed, and you'll see the Wizard World logo on a picture. There's a discount code there, and you guys get 10% off your tickets for that.
Oh, okay, great.
Cool.
Well, great. Thank you very much for that. Josh Nealis, again, thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Absolutely.